A dream that can never be, and the will to defy nature's cruel fate. Such was the upbringing of Kylene Starr, a girl with aspirations to become a wizard, born to a race incapable of professional magic. An innate handicap, overcome by unrelenting heart to achieve the impossible. Standing at the cusp of those hardships, Kylene's soon to discover that life's real struggles have only just begun. A journey that will venture to the farthest reaches of the continental Ashtopa on the planet Godia, in the pursuit of a passion that's road will branch in directions she never could have possibly imagined. Let's check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, I've published a book titled Godia Chronicles, The Jewels of Fate. A high fantasy epic about a woman with aspirations to become a wizard and her quest to achieve that dream. Available on Amazon.com as a Kindle, paperback, and hardcover edition. And I figured what better way to advertise that than to give you all a demonstration here today. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We are going to be reading through the first 4 chapters in a series of 4 videos to give anybody who might be thinking about buying the book a little bit of an idea of what it's about and what to expect. Quick disclaimer before we begin though, I am actually going to be skipping the very first chapter in the book because the first chapter is just a bunch of exposition and world building that I decided to arrange as sort of a prologue introduction to the setting rather than inserting it randomly throughout the early chapters in a way that would interrupt the story's flow. So we're just going to be skipping that because I can add that stuff in editing. If there's any important information that was brought up in the first chapter that you would need to know, I can add that in editing using text on the screen. So this way we can skip all of that and just get right into the story proper, which I think will just make this much more interesting to watch and listen to by getting to the point. Also, forgive my any voices I do or anything like that in case it's a little bad. I'm not an actor. I don't have the best range of voices. All of my voices basically just sound like me, but different. But I want to give the characters voices because I feel like that will make it a little bit easier to follow, especially when you don't have the visual cues of a new paragraph telling you when a particular character might be speaking. Although to help with that a little bit, I'm probably also going to add a quick edit in the video to show whenever a paragraph shifts. So that will also help with following how things are supposed to be going. Lastly, if I mispronounce any words, I apologize. There are words in this book that I've never heard spoken. I've only ever seen them written, so with some words, there's going to be a little bit of guesswork as far as how they're supposed to be pronounced. I hope that doesn't cause any problems, but I apologize if it does. With that said, let's dive right in and get this show on the road. Chapter 1. Farmland fragrances breezed through 5 unglazed windows of a humble cabin's first story. Dazzling warmth cascaded from noon's clear sky, disqualifying necessity for artificial interior illumination and calefaction. All around, livestock clucked, mooed, and neighed in praise of another beautiful day in Cultivator's Xanadu. The home's door faced east, a window on either side. Straw beds rested against the northern and southern walls of the first story's room, bound by ropes and draped with loosely fitted cotton sheets. Their feet pointed west, and could roughly form an obtuse triangle with its vertex a ladder ascending to a trapdoor in the ceiling. Incorporated into the western wall was a long counter with a porcelain basin and kitchen cupboards overhead. At the room's approximate center, a plain wooden table was accompanied by 2 matching chairs. Upon it, expertly whittled eating utensils and plates, 2 sets on opposite sides of a half-eaten fruit cake. An empty ceramic pitcher still moist of milk and a pair of similarly crafted cups completed the arrangement of a recently enjoyed dessert. Kylene felt positively ecstatic for her 18th birthday. During the earliest stages of official tutoring, James assured her permission to challenge the elementals upon her reaching adulthood. Eventually, the purely motivational nature of his false promise dawned on her, which to Kylene mattered not. Intentions wholeheartedly planned to capitalize on it nonetheless. She and her father hunkered formally, postured straight with hands on their laps. Stationed 4 feet apart, as was customary during lectures and whatnot, their colliding gazes parallel to the front door and dining table between which they sat. Robes were orthodox wizard training uniforms, honoring origins in ancient fiction as stereotypical attire. Theirs were velvet garments that differed only by personalized colorization. Black with dark purple hems for Kylene, green with yellow for James. The pureblood sported his hood, while the pupil opted out. Its light weight pressed uncomfortably on the anthropomorphic vixen's pointy ears, a subtle pressure which bugged her incessantly. Anxiety plagued Kylene where she sat, not only from some lingering uncertainty about her prediction of the old man's bluff, but because casual birthday celebrations slightly postponed daily training. She appreciated the gesture, but on that specific year she just wanted to get things underway, tantamount to a youngster hankering to skip the traditional cake and mingling to dive right into madly shredding open gifts. Fighting the intense urge to insist they get started rattled her nerves. Speaking out of turn would only instigate a longer wait, triggering an internal struggle between conflicting desires. Pressure accumulating in her throat and lungs fueled by words itching to break free versus mental obstructions impeding their release in accordance to the negative outcomes of similar past outbursts. Several minutes ticked by, then finally James spoke. Approximately 9 years ago, I took you under my wing. Ever since, your development has proven astonishing. Despite adversities decreed by natural law, you have persevered to progress well beyond your years. Words cannot express how your success pleases me as a teacher and as a father makes me proud. However, subtle tension readied Kylene to pounce the moment permission to confront the elementals was resiled. Before allowing you to attempt the first elemental trial, I require that you undertake one final test. Now hold on, Kylene demanded. Minor disorientation induced by James not utterly revoking his old promise drained some of her defiant energy, invoking feelings that she spoke strictly out of preparedness rather than invalid argument. Although resulting in a tad sense of ridiculousness, she didn't back down. You promised that when I turned 18, I could challenge the elementals. The aged voice harmoniously joined Kylene's sentence. I haven't forgotten that promise. I also know you're too keen to have believed it all these years. Damn it! Kylene scoffed, mostly at herself. She had only herself to blame for being so swiftly disarmed of the advantage. Single-minded haste to argue his expected decision foolishly overlooked how he may have devoted consideration to the matter himself. In instant hindsight, she felt like an idiot for so totally disregarding his cogitative nature. James granted Kylene momentary silence, presenting her the opportunity for a snappy comeback. Nothing escaped her black lips, an extremely uncommon occurrence when nary a retort brewed in her head, making for an awkward pause. James raised a fist to his mouth. Ahem. Anyway, as I just said, I haven't forgotten my promise, nor do I doubt you've identified it as a ruse. However, the depth of my deception's reasoning far exceeds that word's face value. Considering your unusual circumstances, I genuinely believed you could be a prodigy. That false promise was therefore declared to present you with a blatant goal, something to provide you with a clear destination, a purpose transcending self-gratification. By doing so, I hoped to push your training beyond all obstacles, to diminish the probability that you might concede under the crippling pressure of your heritage. I'm confident that was the correct decision. You persevered for that goal, pushing to challenge the elementals regardless of realizing that falsehood. If not for that motivation, no doubt you wouldn't have achieved this level so soon. That said, those facts don't necessarily translate into facing them at present is forbidden. Despite my original intentions, your remarkable progress shows that you may, in fact, be prepared to take that next step after all. Excitement flourished, curving her lips into a joyous smile. Vulpine ears perked, and orange eyes sparkled an ebullient portrayal of heart's enthusiasm. In spite of herself, Kylene felt suddenly agog that consent to face the first elemental may actually be imminent. She could hardly contain herself from bouncing and squealing like an unrestrained child. A raised hand halted his daughter's swelling exhilaration before uncontrollably escalating too high. Don't get ahead of yourself. To embark on that ordeal, an evaluation of your readiness is prerequisite. The elementals are unimaginably powerful beasts with voracious appetites for wizards which cannot be repleted. Ingrace their domain ill-prepared, and you might as well with all the trimmings of a holiday bird. A crude example, but for about 1600 years it's been the standard responsibility of wizardry teachers to deeply ingrain that very real danger into the minds of their pupils. That to meet an elemental chimera was not a simple matter of testing one's qualifications, but also the offering of oneself as a sacrifice in the event of failure. That horrific admonition zapped terrified chills down Kylene's spine, quivering her with a terror that's flood quashed her joyful anxiety. That disgusting potentiality air enveloped her heart with fear. Assuming rumors about their digestive tracts spoke true, she'd much rather die outright. To be swallowed alive than agonizingly stripped of magically rich life energy while slowly starving or suffocating sounded unbearably macabre. Mulling over it always shook her up a bit, but never enough to shatter everlasting resolve. Suppressing some disturbingly abhorrent imagery, Clear Enunciation asked with a newfound compliance, "What kind of test did you have in mind?" Maintaining regular readiness for any situation is crucial, especially when facing unpredictable conditions. Today's instructions are therefore that you exercise and study in whatever manner you deem appropriate, while totally unaware of what tomorrow may bring. Wizardry required broader knowledge than most professions. One day's job may involve operating appliances for a bedridden client, then the next might be to exterminate or dispel pests. Regularly training and studying to maintain that persistent necessity of preparedness for hundreds of possible scenarios was commonplace. Kylene knew that importance, yet James' reasonable proposal still irked her. Reviewing past lessons, such nettlesome redundancy. There hardly existed a greater waste of time, her defiant opinion stubbornly strove to believe. Spitefulness repressed whenever the activity bore fruit, which annoyingly occurred so often, simply acknowledging the mocking frequency stung her pride. After a discontent sigh, Kylene reluctantly nodded. "Yes, father," arguing the unavoidable wouldn't be a prudent use of time. James smiled, pleased by his daughter's unusual, albeit reluctant, compliance. "I appreciate your understanding. Please begin at your own discretion." Grabbing his wooden staff that nowadays served him more as a cane, he grunted to a stand, fueling over 8 decades in debile muscles and joints. "As for myself, I've my own preparations requiring attention." He stepped outside, leaving the door agape. Kylene sat patiently for 5 minutes, granting her adoptive father fair distance. She shared an interest in heading outdoors, but feared accusation of attempted spying should innocent intentions be mistaken for tailing. Departure withheld until canine senses plus rough calculations assured the coast was clear. Vast farmlands stretched beyond sight across the verdant landscape of cultivator Xanadu, across which could be heard the echoing voices and tools hard at work enduring the afternoon grind. Acreages of crops and livestock, all owned by people thriving on simple lives virtually devoid of modern society's complications, sustained by hunting, cultivating, and hand-making almost their every need in a region isolated by all-encompassing mountains. Trading happened rarely with the outside world, and even less among themselves, graciousness generally opting for selfless sharing. A pristine pond, the locals' main freshwater source, conveniently resided only a couple miles from Kylene's home, a distance conquered easily by tireless running exhibiting extraordinary stamina. More so than physical or cardiorespiratory exhaustion, reprieve from warm summer weather called for a restful drink upon arrival. Kylene closed her eyes and took some deep breaths, slowly inhaling nasally, exhaling orally, repeatedly drawing in the soothing essence of fresh, aromatic air, then releasing the taints of tension and stress, melting away all stray thoughts with each breath, like droplets of moisture descending a pane until the glass was crystal clear, guiding consciousness to achieving meditative serenity. Years of practice quickly reached that desired state, telling eyelids to harmoniously lift with the final exhale. Solemnity stared at the pure, glittering water, its stillness painting a remarkable reflection of Hotla, the sun, beautified by calmly dancing shimmers. Kylene's optical fixation so focused, concentration erased all awareness of even the most immediate happenings around the lake's boundary, removing all nearby critters and sounds, even the undulating field hugging the lake, from her perceived universe. Her conscious mind sunk deeper into lucid meditation until the very energy flowing throughout her soma from the mana heart, an ethereal organ adjacent to the physical heart, where the bulk of one's magic was naturally stored and distributed, became fully palpable, granting her total control over every aspect of her internal magical network, a step requiring years of disciplined training, and one of many expert qualities distinguishing wizards from average people who, typically, could only feel and manipulate the magic in their hands during its natural course through their body. By her commands overriding the mana heart's standard functionality, an optimal mass of magic flowed like a calm river down Kylene's right arm and congregated into her hand. An appendage covered by black fur transitioned from orange at the elbow, with 6 collective pads on its palms and fingertips, and claws instead of nails, a fusion of human hand and fox paw, just like the feet she usually kept bare. Kylene's energized manis emanated thousands of infinitesimal particles, which merged into a floating mass centimeters from her grip's touch, forming a tangible sphere of white light indistinguishably smaller than a baseball. Conjuring that sphere was a cinch, barely spanning the course of a full second after her eyes had opened, infinitely faster than the nauseating hours required for advanced spellcasting techniques when she first started learning. Fingers firmly gripped the ball. Contrary to destructive properties that wildly sparked when squeezed, magic couldn't harm its master unless willed otherwise. Inflicting self-harm was also a highly complex skill wizards usually only learned as an indirect result of other lessons. She precipitated the spell with a satisfyingly dramatic grunt. Collision with the pond detonated the projectile, splashing gallons of water skyward. The white explosion's effulgence glistened off spraying liquid and rippling waves for a destructively dazzling spectacle. Wind blew aquatic mist at Kylene, who held stock still until the after-effects subsided. When all became calm, she straightened her stature, then repeated from the top. Practice resumed for an hour, exercising every aspect of execution by hurling several explosive spells into empty water. Contemplation of summoning sowed more profound understanding, and splash sizes expressed approximate measurements of power and density for minuscule improvements in efficiency, control, and output. A regular training drill performed hundreds of times past. Today, particularly scrutinizing attention heeded its imparted wisdom. As per usual, the end results were detestably imperceptible, a disappointment that never felt rewarding, but such time-consuming practice paved the solitary path to mastering wizardry. Kylene cogitated while jogging home. The seemingly ransacked attic, which housed the majority of their belongings, contained everything required for the day's remainder. Deceptively organized food, books, clothes, and tools filled cluttered cupboards, shelves, and chests. A round glass window on the eastern wall cast dusty sunbeams onto an adjacent table and chair for studying, older than the furniture downstairs. Having not eaten proper food since an early breakfast before laboriously tending crops, Kylene first prioritized preparing some chow. They didn't own a refrigerator, and limited space sometimes stored sensitive items ineffectively, so relied on enchantments to preserve most of their food supplies. Those methods didn't consume more energy than could be replenished during meals, a problem that may plague ordinary people not trained in conservation of fuel by maximizing how magic's applied. Her light meal consisted of 2 matching poems, a sandwich, and milk, every magically preserved ingredient fresh as their day of harvest. Naturally toxic, the brightly yellow Godia native pox fruit, named for its vibrant red spots, earned reputation as a popular delicacy when safely grown utilizing special cultivation techniques taught by the extinct Magais. Most people ate them with a paper towel handy because gushing juiciness inevitably dripped messily from every bite. Disregarding proper eating etiquette for being absurdly priggish, Kylene loudly slurped during and after each bite, sucking up every delectable drop. When acting similar in public, she always met complaints with the same logically firm retort, delivered with utmost earnestness. At least I'm not wasting valuable nutrients basting a napkin. Wheaten bread encasing thickly stacked crisp lettuce, succulent tomato slices, and juicy raw beef composed her sandwich. Vulpecular genes allowed Kylene non-hazardous consumption of uncooked meat, halving the trouble of preparing flesh products. Taste buds didn't much mind settling for the arguably lesser flavor, especially if weighed against the alternative of stacking additional chores atop an already endless workload. She typically only partook in prepared meat on special occasions, barbecues, parties, etc., or when pre-cooked stock risked otherwise spoiling. Studying immediately followed dinner. Tons of textbooks regarding magic lined the shelves of their solitary double-sided bookshelf, all retaining impressively sleek condition for their age and frequency of use. Blindness pertaining to tomorrow precluded selecting relevant articles to read. Materials were thus chosen in descending order of importance, starting with general information in greatest need of refreshment. Kylene spent several hours reading, indefatigably perusing tidbits of magical theories, formulas, and techniques ranging across nearly every comprehensible difficulty level. She brushed up on the defining qualities of the 5 magical elements: spirit, earth, fire, water, wind, familiarity with which was necessary for conjuring and manipulating their respective powers. Read several chapters explaining controlling specific spell attributes and potencies for properly handling tasks, correct utilization of magic, and the potential consequences for misuse ranging vastly in severity. Even a few somewhat abstract subjects were squeezed into the session, such as a history on magic's origins and peculiarly vague details covering the 4 elementals. Although significantly emphasizing subjects of lesser recollection, occasional skimming of versed details aided in reviewing related lessons. Kylene's incredible reading speed, developed by years of doing that very thing, drastically simplified what would otherwise have risked devolving into a discouragingly tedious task. Studiousness proceeded into the evening, until Hotla sunk too far below Cultivator Xanadu's mountainous horizon for its reddening rays to provide optimal reading light by pure-blooded standards. Notwithstanding dependable nocturnal vision, Kylene stopped at about that time. While studying was important, she more so couldn't afford insufficient sleep. Haste wrapped up the current chapter, then neatly stacked all the books on the old table. They'd be returned to proper placements come morning. James was already asleep, his bed against the northern wall. Kylene didn't bother to tread lightly to hers on the opposite side. It took more than creaking floorboards to disturb the retired wizard's slumber. She undressed, haphazardly tossing all but her undergarments onto the floor near the foot of her straw bed. The hay furniture softly rustled beneath her light weight, as did the pillow of similar make. She tiredly cuddled her fluffy quilt lying adjacent. Furry insulation invalidated blanketing during warm seasons. When not used conventionally, Kylene liked snuggling it as she fell sound asleep. Thus concludes Chapter 1. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you would like to support me and this channel, then consider heading over to Amazon.com to perhaps purchase the book that we previewed today. Or if you're still uncertain, then look forward to the next chapter.